We all experience periods of intense emotion, where we feel like we're on top of the world and that everything is perfect, where we feel gloomy and think that we'll never recover, where we feel irrationally angry. However, for many people in the United States, this isn't simply a case of heightened emotion, it is a neurological disorder that can leave them suffering from depressive and manic episodes. These people, approximately 2.8% of the United States, suffer from bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder is defined by the National Institute of Mental Health as a mental illness that causes clear shifts in a person's mood, energy, activity levels, and concentration. People with bipolar disorder often experience periods of extremely up, elevated, irritable, or energized behavior, known as manic episodes, and very down, sad, indifferent, or hopeless periods, known as depressive episodes. These shifts can be very sudden, clearly occurring, and consistent, but they very often aren't. There's a lot of study in trying to predict how someone with bipolar disorder will feel on a certain day in the future. A common approach is through the use of mathematical models or by recording circadian rhythms as potential indicators of depressive episodes. There are also strides being made to improve assessment of bipolar disorder. Current assessment depends on clinical interviews, which are both slow and expensive and inaccessible to many. One attempt to speed this process up is to have the individual wishing to be tested take an EKG and to measure the intervals between two consecutive R waves for 1 to 5 minutes, although these can be expensive. While predictions and assessment are important, many not in healthcare don't even know what bipolar disorder can look like. An accessible way to change that is through media, things like movies, TV shows, books, and more that people see and consume every day. These things increase awareness and can reduce some of the stigma around mental health by normalizing it and visualizing it. This is why it's important to have good and accurate representations in media. One such character that accurately represents bipolar disorder comes from the show Shameless, which follows the Gallagher family living in Chicago as they try and make it through each day struggling with money and with morals. The third oldest son is named Ian Gallagher, and he suffers from bipolar disorder explicitly during the show. Throughout the show, Ian shows clear signs of manic episodes several times, most notably when he steals his brother's identity, joins the army, steals a helicopter, and deserts. Then he returns home and falls into a depressive episode where he is bedridden. Interestingly, Ian isn't diagnosed until season 5 of the show, allowing audience to learn who he is as a character and connect with him without any initial conclusions that may have been drawn from the label bipolar. Ian's initial refusal of treatment and to even address that he had bipolar disorder strained his relationship with his family and boyfriend, just like can happen in real life. In fact, he even tries to steal his boyfriend's kid during a manic episode and attempts to run off to Florida. However, thanks to the confused but consistent and loving attempts of his family to help him, he eventually accepts his diagnosis and starts taking meds for it. Ian Gallagher is overall a good representation of someone who has bipolar disorder. Shameless depicts his struggle and journey to acceptance well in a way that highlights how support groups and accessibility help individuals struggling with these disorders. A study by Cambridge found that educational support groups foster a sense of community that helped participants be more comfortable with seeking help and holding each other accountable. Now, we move away from a character who is explicitly diagnosed with bipolar disorder. In fact, we move long, long ago to a galaxy far, far away. The story of Anakin Skywalker is one of tragedy, one that perhaps wasn't intentionally written with bipolar disorder in mind, but that meets many of the requirements. If you are unaware, Anakin's story begins fatherless and in chains as he is enslaved from birth. He is rescued by the Jedi at the age of 9 and joins them, struggling with their code of peace and restraining their emotions, all while being groomed by Darth Sidious to switch to the dark side. Eventually he does, and he becomes Darth Vader, killing essentially all of the Jedi and plunging the galaxy into a tyrannical empire until he is killed, saving his son. Trauma at early ages predisposes individuals to mood disorders, which include bipolar disorder. There are few traumas greater than being a slave, unfortunately. Anakin's use of defense mechanisms like projection, such as when he believes his wife Padme to be cheating on him because he is feeling guilty for killing a bunch of children, and splitting. Throughout the movies and TV shows, the characters Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader are shown to be two different mindsets vying in control for the same body. Both point to bipolar disorder. Anakin suffers from multiple dissociative episodes, such as when he slaughters an entire tribe of people for kidnapping his mother and killing her. He is impulsive and has problems containing his emotions throughout the entire franchise, a sign of bipolar disorder. All in all, Anakin Skywalker is an unwitting example of what bipolar disorder can look like without any kind of support or treatment, albeit presented in a space opera. He demonstrates how important it is for people to show support and to check in with individuals to ensure they're getting support properly. The final character to be discussed is from a more recent project than the others. The 2025 movie Thunderbolts depicts Robert Bob Reynolds, the main antagonist of the story. He clearly suffers from bipolar disorder, experiencing manic and depressive episodes throughout the movie. In fact, two of his main personas depict these episodes visually. The first persona, Sentry, is golden and bright, seemingly invincible. He represents manic episodes and how euphoric people can feel when suffering from one. In contrast, there is Void, who is black, depicts a depressive episode, dark, despairing, and angry. Bob is literally stuck inside Void during the movie, signifying how impossible it can seem to escape from an episode like this. Bob's story isn't one of being cured either. It's learning to accept help from the film's protagonists. He is perhaps the most dramatic of the representations mentioned here, with dedicated personas, but it still gets the point across well. Bipolar disorder is a serious condition that affects both those who have it and those around them. The best thing we can do to help people is to increase awareness, and media is a great outlet to do that. Accurately conveying the struggle these people go through is a very powerful tool to help, and one that needs to be explained further.